Welcome to The Skeptic and the Changemaker, a podcast about the future of work and the bold decisions leaders make to do things differently. I'm your host, Susan Chen, the founder and the CEO of CoGrow, a fractional HR strategy consultancy based in Singapore. In our podcast series, I bring a skeptical lens to help navigate and unlearn some of the convenient truths in our world. Our guest today is Stanley Henry, CEO of The Attention Seeker, an organic social content agency doing some really serious cool stuff in marketing, based in New Zealand. All right, Stanley, tell me a bit more about you and The Attention Seeker.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Susan. And a little bit about me. So yeah, I'm the founder of a company called The Attention Seeker. We're a team of about 40 now, people based here in Auckland, and we've got about 8 of our team that are remote. We've been operating for just shy of 6 years now. People know us for creating organic content for ourselves first and foremost. All of our brands are quite large. We have about 2.8 million followers across the social platforms that we own, and generate about 30 million views a month. And kind of our philosophy is, if we can do it for us, we can do it for you. And that's kind of been our recipe for success so far over the last 6 years. But yeah, we've been growing quite fast. You know, it's just a bit over 5 years, almost 6. Up at 40 people, and the goal is to continue to push that. And our next sort of challenge is, how do we jump from 40 to 100, which is kind of the big new scary jump, which will take a couple of years, but that's our next goal.
Great. Tell me about what is the coolest thing the Attention Seeker have done. You guys have a show.
Yeah.
What is that? Tell me about that show.
Yeah, so we, there's like your first question of how much cool stuff we do. There's lots of cool stuff, and the show is definitely one of them. It's called The Dating Void. It's a dating show made for YouTube and the internet, and we ran it for a year. We've been running it for a year, I should say. It's a live show, so we have about 80 people who come to a studio and watch people date on stage blindfolded. And it's quite funny because, they're young people, and they drinking, and there's alcohol, and it's fun, and it's laughter, and it's comedy. And we've got 2 comedians who host the show for us. And so it's quite crazy if you think about it, if you think about that topic. But it's really fun. It's entertaining. It's this idea that the Gen Zs of the world have been born into a world where a lot of dating was done on dating apps, and a lot of they lost that formative years in lockdown, where they, going through uni and stuff, that they were locked down inside of houses. And so they just lost that connection to really connect with people. And the only way to find friends or intimate relationships was on a dating app or on social media. So we thought, why don't we just turn this into a real life experience, make it a bit of fun, make it a bit awkward, but make it, entertaining as well, and blend the two worlds together. Anyway, it's gone really well. There's about 40,000 followers across the platforms, and it's done about 40 million views across all the platforms. And it's one of those things that the team, when we designed the idea, they're like, why are you doing this? This is crazy. Especially the guys who work on all the client projects. And the internal team's like, this is what we exist for. We do cool stuff like this. This is why we go and slave our way helping clients, so that we can have fun as a team and learn and grow. And it has definitely taught our team to do a scale of reduction. 4 or 5 cameras, multiple people working on it, AV technicians, lighting, crowd control, event management, all the things that come into making an event like this, has taught our team a lot, which allows us to then apply those skills to the clients as well.
I mean, dating show, marketing, sort of trying to find that. Although I think it's quite interesting you talk about how the dating world has changed, right? But also, I guess marketing has changed a lot in terms of the old school flyers and newspapers to now, what does that look like online? So that sounds really fun. Before I move away from that topic, there is an age limit for that application, I guess, for people to participate.
Yeah, we typically suggest for under 35s to play. Because,
I feel discriminated against.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
it's not a hard rule. It's not a hard rule, and if we find, we just want to make sure people over 35 understand that a lot of applicants are under that, and so they might not suit, and we want to make sure we can find love.
You need to do the opposite version,
we have thought about that.
55 plus, and then see, the world is different.
We did. We have floated that idea, and it is in the works for potentially doing an over 35s version. So that could be quite fun.
Exactly, exactly. Different world. Speaking of different world, right? You just talked about you want to build a company from 40 to 100, which is a pretty intense growth, right? There's a 0 to 1, 1 to 100. So that's going to be the critical piece. And of course, I mean, I'm hoping that's when HR really comes in to support you as a senior leader, CEO, founder. And I know you hired a fractional head of HR a few months ago, right? Tell me about this decision because it's not mainstream, definitely not in New Zealand, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I grew up in New Zealand. New Zealand is not on the forefront of innovation. I'm now in Asia and still educating, spend a lot of time. So, what what led you to that decision?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it comes down to a fundamental that our business succeeds because of its culture, and a lot of that culture has been directed by me in the way that I wanted to lead the team based on my career history, and what's been successful for me when I ran hotels for a living, for instance. And I knew that at some point, and I knew in a business like mine where the founder has so much control and ownership of everything, you have to start letting go. You have to start allowing the other leaders to come through. And as your business goes from a very flat structure into a more hierarchical structure that inevitably happens as you grow, you need to be able to trust other people to take care of parts of the business. People and culture is such an important part of the business, as you would especially know, but most people should know. It's a huge part of a business, especially a business that essentially we sell people. We're a service-based business. That's what we sell. That's our product as well. That I needed someone to support me on the growth of the scale of that culture as we went through this transition from, a 30, sort of a startup, into the scale up phase and getting into the 100. And I knew that if I was to hold on to all of that, my grip would be too tight, and then people would resist it. And so I needed to find a way to allow someone else who knew and had better understanding of this than I have and had done it previously to go, cool, Stan, I get what you're trying to do. I can help you scale this culture without you being bogged down in the details and day to day. And so that was really the decision. And then it really came down to, okay, well, I really need to find someone I can trust in this. This is our most precious resource, and I can't just let anyone take this.
So, but as a skeptic, if it's so important, so precious, why don't you just hire a full-time team that is dedicated to you, speaks the language, right? Because part of Fractional is that we work across multiple clients, right? We understand and engage them differently. So if it's such important, so precious, why not just hire a full-time person?
Yeah, fantastic question, and actually something we really did dabble with and to talk about is the something that we could do. And then when I looked out and I went to the world and I asked and I saw who were the people and the players out in the game, and I realized the level of skill and knowledge and expertise at the high end of that pool of candidates and pool of people, I realized that these individuals who play in a fractional space are really at the pinnacle of their careers. They are the best. That's why they have the confidence to go out into a fractional space. And when I looked at what it would cost to take someone at that rate, I mean, it was maybe two or three of my senior leaders as one, the same price as two or three of my other senior leaders. And I felt that they deserved that. I felt that they've earned their right to command those sort of wages at that point. And then when I started to talk to people in the fractional space, they're like, look, you've actually got a really good culture. You've got a really good team. You've got people who understand how to implement and delegate and build and things. And Stan, you understood it because you built it to begin with. I also had Alicia, who's worked with me for now 13 years in my team. She was with me with hotels and now into this business. She's also very passionate about people and culture. And we've got a team that's very passionate. So when I started having conversations with fractional leaders, they said, look, you can take the expertise and the strategic knowledge of someone at this level, and you can utilize your team to do the execution of those strategies. You don't need them to come and do the day-to-day work. They can delegate it effectively to the people in your team to go and execute, but you can use them as a strategic partner to make sure you're going in the right way. What are the things that you're doing, Stanley, that are the strategic parts of culture building? Harness those, give them a voice, talk about them, give them a way that they you can visualize them and make them tangible, not just something sitting in Stan's head. And then once you can do that and articulate it, you can repeat it and you can start to make it repeatable. Once we figure that out, we can pass it to your team and they can make sure that it happens as you scale. So realistically, it came down to, I couldn't afford the best as a full-time person, but I could get what I needed from them by using
Yeah.
them fractionally, which I actually just wanted their strategic. I didn't need them to do. We could do I needed them to think at a level where they weren't also tied down because when the thinking I want them to do is with us. I want them to do it collaboratively with us. So I don't need them to go away and think. I need them to think with us. So when they're with us, they're present, and when they move away, we can continue the execution of it.
Yeah. So do you think this same idea of the advisory, almost as advisory partnership co-creation, will that still work when you hit 100? Or do you think there will be a moment you say, even still then, with all these beautiful things we talked about, it's still not going to work when we hit a certain scale?
I think that question is still this. I think the answer is still the same as a cost analysis. Like, how can I get that best person? And I think at 100, what you're saying is we have the revenue now to pay that salary of that person full time, and it might not be the person that we've brought on tomorrow. Might not want to go into a full time role. You might not say fractional, but if you're working with a good partner, their job is probably then to help you find the right person to then take on that role as well. And so I think it would make sense that at a point where we're closing in on 100 staff, we've probably also got the salary or the revenue to support a salary of someone at that level. So it depends on how it all flows and how it all falls apart. But I would imagine we would. The reason being is that I need more of their strategic mind. I need it more now because there's more people, there's more departments. We may be across borders. At 100. We probably won't be 100 in Auckland. Like, really, realistically, a social agency in Auckland doesn't need to be 100 people. We really would have to have an Australian presence or a US presence. So now we are across borders. There's multiple teams that this people and culture person's working across. And so I think it does demand someone to be more full-time, or potentially, like we have floated this as well, is it that you have a fractional person in each country because the culture, like the geographic cultures are different, and actually it requires some nuance, like, as being in Singapore and New Zealand, like you probably have someone who's just slightly different, understands the nuances of the different cultures just enough to ensure that you can maintain a company culture, but that's local to the local geographic region and the people's cultures there. So there's lots of ways that we'll get into it, but I can imagine we're going to be spending a lot more money on people and culture.
Good. So give me an example of a strategic problem you're navigating with your fractional HR.
Yeah, quite a few actually. I think like one of them at the moment that's our biggest project that is happening as part of the people and culture person coming on board is this idea of creating a very strong feedback culture inside of our team. This understanding that like it's really important to give feedback, but giving feedback isn't a natural skill. People just don't know how to give feedback, and you can't just tell people once, this is how you give feedback, so from now on only give it this way. That's I mean, I wish it was that easy. It'd save me so much money, but it's just not that simple. The reality of like a feedback culture in a team is so complex and so many nuances, different types of communication styles. We have to build quite a robust system to do that. And so the first strategic problem we're trying to fix is understanding here is a cultural piece of our brand that as we get bigger, the communication styles and the feedback style we had when we were small, when everyone could talk to everyone, we need to figure out how to take that same presence and scale it now that there's lots of people. Like we're a team of 40. I talk on daily to 10 of them. The 30 of them I don't work with daily. I'm the boss, I'm the owner. I don't talk to them daily. I don't have that personal relationship like I did when there was only 10 of us. I need a way that I can still give these people feedback that I don't talk to every day, who I don't have a real strong personal relationship with, and they don't think I'm telling them off, or they don't think I'm just being critical, that they actually know I'm here to help and support them grow. And so I need to find that. And they also need to understand they can give me feedback as the leader. That they understand, it's not the big scary boss in his office coming out to tell us off, that they can actually talk to me and tell me, hey Stan, here's some real feedback that I've got and I'd like you to hear it. So that's a big project. That's something strategic that we know is going to take, it's going to be an ongoing process. It's never going to stop. But we have to build a system inside of our business that enables that feedback culture to grow. How does that roll out to performance reviews? How does it roll out to 360s? How does it, all that sort of stuff that comes into it? It's like quite a complex system that, if not handled right, could one, just be forgotten and you spend all the money not doing anything and people just take it for granted. Or two, you actually teach the wrong skills and then people show the wrong behaviors and you end up with quite a toxic culture. So it's a really important one, but that's one that we're working on now and it's quite important for us.
And you mentioned around employees, right? They don't now get the same type of intimacy with you because it's now just bigger. Now you're Stanley, the big boss that comes in, and that's part of scaling and growing, right? And I think one of the challenges with Fractional is that there's a balance also between how much they can access their culture champion. So how does that work for you in your
Yeah,
Fractional?
yeah, it is quite a it is quite a hard problem to solve actually. Like when someone's on, limited hours a week, they're remote as well. They live in a different they're in Wellington, not in Auckland. How do you bridge that gap? I think one thing we did really well as a team when we first brought on our very first remote staff member is we did everything we could to ensure that they felt included. So their name, his name was Don. He was a video editor based in Canada and just outside of Toronto. And it was really important that he felt like he was part of the team properly, not just some, overseas worker, that he was actually a part of our team. From that, we developed a bunch of things that have made people who are remote feel like they're present. Like, as an example, our morning briefings every morning, we have our online team in it as well. So it's an entire wide team. And the way that we've developed it at this new office, we built a grandstand in our office. And so it's a big grandstand that everyone can sit on and face two big 75-inch TVs. All the online staff show up on the 75 TVs and they can see all of us. The webcam faces at us. Whenever anyone talks on our team, they're talking in a microphone, so they're holding a microphone. So therefore you can really clearly hear them because the microphones on the big webcams of those conference rooms, they're not very good sometimes and you miss it. So we've got like handheld mics, we've got two of them, they're really good quality, the voice is really strong, the camera zooms in on your face as you talk, and so and as a remote person you really feel like you'll be able with them. The people in the room have to slow down and compensate for the people on the screen. So you can't just yell out your answers. You have to be like, oh, can I put my hand up and speak? The same way someone on screen has to put their hand up and speak. Like just because we're in a room together, we don't get the advantages of being able to quickly talk back and forth. We have to stop, take the microphone and speak through it. So first of all, we built that culture, right? That's a culture we have. Our online team feel very much included. So once we brought on a fractional person, that was able to do that as well online. But the same principles of working with an online team that way is the same principles of having someone have limited touch with people, but grow a really strong bond really quickly. That's what that does. Don, when I flew Don over for the first time after a year of working for us, the screams and the cries of the team who didn't know he was coming because of how excited they were to see him, because they really felt they were friends. They only saw him 15 minutes a day, most of them. 15 minutes a day they saw him, but they felt like there was a brother of theirs. And so with our fractional people and culture, it's implementing the same strategies. She's there, she can touch and feel virtually, build the same rapport really quickly, and then because of that, she gets an understanding of the culture that we have very fast as well.
I mean, you talk about building that rapport really quickly, right? But realistically, there's also 40 people, right? Sometimes building that requires time and one-on-one. And sometimes, you know what, requires to solve some really tricky things together to build those bonds. So tell me a bit more about that bond, because I think the biggest skepticism around fractional is how do you build, and that's always what's on top of my head, is how do we scale intimacy and find the intersection between intimacy and efficiency, right? There is a piece around that to really make fractional work at scale, because in some cases it's not just a fractional leader, we have fractional team as well, right? In your case as a fractional leader, you have existing team. In some cases it could be a fractional team. So there's that intersection. So tell me about, I want to dive into, because I'm skeptical, but how do we build, right? Fast. The main thing is the fast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes into what we talked about with the CEO and their role in this hierarchical system, that at some point you have to delegate and trust. And so with a fractional person and people and culture, I couldn't just have Tamara join our strategic leadership team, talk to us as strategic leaders, and then go away. We had to build her the same hierarchical structure underneath her. Who are the leaders? Who are the other people in our team who are going to work with Tamara to delegate the responsibility to do it? And so just because you got one fractional leader doesn't mean that that person only has to be intimate with their team. Like my strategic leadership team, there's only 4 of us in that strategic leadership team. Those are my 4 reports plus my EA. That's the intimate relationship I need now. at the moment, the next layer down in our team, I still have relationships with them, obviously, but the intimate one where I meet constantly, I have all my conversations with strategically are with those five people. Well, there's five of us in that, the four people that join me. Our fractional people and culture is the same. She only needs to have that super intimate with them, but she has to have then her direct report underneath her. So that's her peer group, and then her direct reports underneath her, which in this case is just Alicia, one of our team. They also need to have a very, very strong relationship. In this particular instance with our person, we also have two other people in the team who have quite large teams underneath them. Connor Ransley, who's our head of production, and then Charlotte, who's our head of newsletter and copy. They've got quite large teams underneath them. So we also gave them direct time with her because they have the most people and culture questions, obviously. So we had strategic team, Alicia, who's her like, you might call it like HR coordinator. It's not quite right, but that's kind of the role she plays for Tamara. And then you've got the two other leaders in the team who have the largest teams, who need the most people and culture support. So she has one-on-one intimate relationship with them, but then she empowers those people to then have the same intimate relationships with their team when it comes to talking about people and culture. And it's just a flow, and it's delegation. It's smart, effective delegation, because Tamara can't be in an intimate relationship with 40 people. If she could do that, then I should be able to do it too, and I can't.
Yeah. What are your team saying about this? Now you've got a fractional leader. I know you brought her in. There's like town hall, right? So people know this is the strategy for this particular leadership aspect of it. What are your teams saying? Because you could say it's all great. What are they saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? I think actually my team were quite skeptical at the beginning. You know, like it was our culture is such a proud part of our team. It's such a unique and important part of how we operate as a business. A lot of the people who work for me have been offered jobs with a lot more money with other companies who are bigger than us, but have stayed for the culture. They're like, I get it, but I want what this has, and I don't believe you can give it to me, right? So it's super important. So they were skeptic and saying, Stan, what if this goes? What if she disrupts this? What if this scales? What if we don't keep her, you know? But they also understand, they've watched our business grow, they get it, that sometimes you have to take chances on things. You have to trust people. You have to bring them in. You have to bring them into this culture, teach them, and allow them to do the things that they need to do to succeed. And so they were skeptical, don't get me wrong. Like a lot of them are like, is this really what we need? Is that money being spent really the best way? You know, for the same amount, we could hire this person in the team kind of thing. This is a fractional role that costs us the same as a full-time editor. You know, it's like, we would love to have another video editor right now, Stan. So like, are we really sure this is the right place to spend it? And some of those decisions as a strategic leadership team or you know, as a CEO, you have to make the decisions that are best for the business long term. And of course, right now, it would maybe have been better for the company in the short term to get a video editor. But we decided to bank on that. We will continue to grow, but if we do, we need this people and culture problem's not going to get any smaller. So they understood that. I'm lucky enough that I had a good culture that I could convince the team to, like, they trust me in my decision making. But also I said to them, you get to choose the person. I chose the direction, but you get to choose how we execute on it. So although I think we need to do a people and culture person because I need support to scale our culture, you get to choose the person that we get to work with. So we didn't just talk to one. It wasn't just me talking to suppliers going, yeah, cool, I like you, let's go in. They, my leadership team had to interview these people and make sure that they're all happy and okay. Yeah, so they went through it. They had one-on-ones with her. She went through an interview process. A few of them did. They each actually, a number of them actually did sessions with the team to try to see how they interact and see if there was a cultural fit. And so the team, they liked everyone we talked to, but they were skeptical about a little bit. Some of them like, oh, I'm not really sure here because of this reason. When they met Tamara, all of them were like, she's the one. She's the one. We get it. She's us. She's the same person. Like, she is our culture. Let's get her. And I think that's how I got them to overcome their skepticism, is because they're like, yeah, okay, Stan's told us that he thinks strategically this is the right way, but we've had an important say on making sure we got the right person that we can work with to do the things that he wants us to do with this person. But yeah, look, it's still not easy. Like, it's hard to have a new, essentially a leader come up above you, right? Like, she is a lead in the team and she has authority to say how things are going to move forward. And so they have to learn to deal with that. And it's not just Stan getting to decide culture anymore, it's other people. So it's been hard, but look, I'm pretty lucky that culture is a big part for us. My team do trust me, but then I also empower them to make the final decision. I shortlist the ones that I think are right, and then they pick the one that they think is the perfect one.
Tell me about your shortlist. How many did you shortlist?
3. Shortlist into interviews, 3.
Okay.
I looked at much more, and I looked at various reasons. So I looked quite broad. A lot of people sort of came, and actually a lot of people reached out, and I looked at a few different factors. I wanted someone local. When I say local, local to New Zealand, because I wanted to understand that the biggest part of our team were Kiwis, and I wanted to understand the nuance of that. So that was an important piece. Not that I don't think someone abroad, like in the US, we had one person from the US that sort of like reached out, and I was like, it's not that you couldn't do it, it's just that there's little nuances and stuff, and it's just easier time zones and stuff. So I just wanted that for that reason. I also wanted someone who had proven experience in startups and scale ups and understanding the pressures of what that looked like. And so we had a lot of people who came out of corporate and they'd already worked in corporate, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because corporate is like, big businesses are the same as small businesses. They're just big. That's all the same things. You still need HR, you still need finance, you still need these things, but the systems are different because they're more, they work in enterprise in the sense that they are all there and established. There's other reasons why enterprise has struggles, but they have a fully robust system usually. And that's a really hard thing for a scale up because it changes so much. And so I needed someone to understand that we're going to break this every time. Like the feedback culture thing we're rolling out right now is going to look different in a year, and it's going to look different in a year again. And I needed someone to understand that really well and have worked in that environment. And then I needed someone obviously that I felt represented the culture that we were trying to do. So the 3 people that I did shortlist, I was like, they are close enough to our culture. I fit with them. They make sense to me, and I could work with them. So they've got the experience that we needed. They're local enough to make sure that this exchange happened easy enough, for time zones and cultural-wise and nuances, and also that they felt like a culture fit. And then I got down to 3 that I felt were the right fit for me. I'll be honest. Some of it was just gut. I was just like, I think this person's right. Tamara, as an example, who we ended up going with, massive gut feel. She was in Wellington as well, which also was almost a little bit of a red flag, because I was like, I'd love her. She's just Auckland, because she could just pop in once a week or whatever.
Yeah, let's grab coffee,
Let's
have a
chill.
chat.
Yeah, exactly. Just so much easier. And so I was like, but like she is great. Like I've seen her work. She worked with a couple of quite well-known startups in New Zealand who took them from the 30 to 100 phase of their journey as well. So she was really in line with where we'd been. And I clicked with her really fast. Like I knew, like we're the same people. Like I get you. And so she was a bit of a gut feel. Like probably didn't tick all the boxes perfectly, but sometimes you got to trust your gut. So I did. And then the team felt the same way as soon as they met her. It was great. And the 2 that didn't quite work out, they weren't bad. And the team were like, we probably could have worked with them. There wasn't anything wrong. It was just this candidate. Like when you compare candidates next to each other, or people next to each other, you can see there's now relativity on how good they are. So they were like, these people are good, but this one here, this is the winner. And so that was really how we got to that decision.
Yeah. And I think being a good skeptic, right? The question is always, one of the opportunity of bringing Fractional is actually bring in someone that potentially is going to be a little bit different, right? So if there's a lot of, hey, she understands the culture, he or she understands the culture, we speak the same language, there's a danger of then we're just sort of regurgitating, right? So how do you think then you as a CEO to be mindful of that, and then when you bring that fractional in, where's that balance? Because I've seen also CEOs or founders eventually override a fractional. Ultimately, it's my final decision, right? So tell me how it really works with that power dynamic.
That's a real interesting perspective, and I probably need to unpack that a little bit. I think in terms of culture fit, I think it's an interesting conversation when you say, a lot of people think when they're finding a cultural fit that they're saying to us, they're saying to people that, I want people that look and feel and say the same things, they fit in with us, we all understand. We think of cultural fit as, we've got a hole in our team that no one fits, let's plug it. So we don't have anyone that looks like this or thinks like this or speaks like this. Let's do that. And if you have a look at our lineup, it's one of the reasons why I banner on LinkedIn and a lot of our stuff is like a lineup of our team. You can see the diversity across our team instantly when you look at it. There are a whole bunch of different people from all different walks of life. We got people from all parts of New Zealand, like US, we've got people from Australia, we've got people from India, we've got people from all parts of Asia. We've got different age brackets. We've got 22-year-olds up to 52-year-olds, we
I
got
always see the young ones.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
picture the more mature
Yeah,
employees.
well, I really want some of those more mature ones to put their face out in the content because it would show a lot of credibility to our team. But as you can imagine, the 52-year-olds aren't really keen to dance on TikTok as much. But it is true, like when you see it as this diverse group of people, and I think that that's the difference. That what we are looking for in the cultural fit are people who are willing to buck the status quo. So we are often looking for people who are bucking the trend. We want someone to challenge us, and Tamara did that perfectly when she came aboard. She actually didn't agree with what we were saying to her. She challenged us on the things that we were saying. That was part of the reasons why we knew she was right. She challenged us appropriately. It was a yes and approach, it's not this no you're wrong, it's this, or it's not a yeah, anything you want I'll do. It was a yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, and how about this approach as well, and how about we do this. And that was like exactly what we wanted. It's exactly how we like to hire. It's someone who's willing to fit a gap, a piece that we didn't have. And look, let's be honest, the rest of the senior leadership team currently is 3 old white men and then Tamara. And so it was really good to get this mix.
Better than that, Stanley.
Yeah, I know. And our senior leadership team, we joke about it all the time that like the senior leaders in the team, me, Nate, and Dom, that was actually a really crucial thing that it's not necessarily it was a male thing, but we needed someone to look different and feel different and challenge us. And she does that brilliantly. She thinks differently to us. That's why she fits. She doesn't fit because she says the same stuff. She fits because she challenges us. She fits the hole we had in our team. And I think that's a really important distinction to make because a lot of people don't think of it like that. A lot of people think of cultural fit as find another Stan, Dom, and Nate and all be happy families and get on. But we didn't want that. I wanted friction. I wanted tension because it's the friction that helps you grow. When your muscles tear, that's how they build. It's not from them just like having a happy day in the spa. That's not how they grow. Yeah.
Oh, I do enjoy the spa though. So tell me the last thing Tamara has challenged you and this group of white male in your leadership. What's the last thing she said? You're like, damn, she was right.
For men on a Monday morning, it's quite normal for us to be quite grumpy. At 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, right? Like it's not that we're grumpy because we're mad. We're just a little bit stoic, a little bit like haven't had enough coffee. It's Monday morning. We just got the inboxes flowing, right? So you sit in these meetings and you have this look of like, what the F, what the hell's going on? And our leadership meeting is 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, a strategic leadership team. And so she'll challenge me and say like, do you want me here? Like, why are you guys looking like that? Are you guys all good? Like, can you tell your face that you're happy? Because I can't. And she'll do that with me one-on-one. But what she's trying to say is, guys, I'm not there with you in the room. I don't understand the vibe that's going on. I need you to give me the energy that we need. And I think that that's an important challenge because if you can't have someone do that with you, you can't have a robust conversation if you think that that person's not participating in the conversation. So it's little things like that she plays on. She also has, when she thinks she sees something or she sees a behavior, for a lot of people, when you see a behavior happening in a business and you're not sure about it, your initial thought process for a lot of people is to go, okay, I'm just going to park that away, see what happens. Maybe it was just a glitch. I'll just move on forward and not really worry about it. For Tamara, she doesn't let that happen. She's like, this weird thing happened. I felt something. I want to ask you about it, Stan. What was this? And like, sometimes it'll be, oh, Stan, I will push back on people on about a certain topic, and then they push back again. And I feel like maybe I've stepped the line that they're like, go away, Tamara. I know what I'm doing. Don't challenge me. And that was a really good insight because I was like, okay, well, let's talk about this. And then I said to her, it's actually part of our culture that we have is that at a robust peer group level, we want to have really good dialogue and devil's advocate. And if someone's doing that to you, what they're actually asking you to do is to do it back to them and continue to do it till we find the root cause. But she didn't know that was how our culture was. But she was willing enough to come out and ask the CEO, the person who could terminate a contract, to say, hey, I don't really get this, I want to know. And I think that's a really interesting thing because what she's actually saying to us is, I need to know explicitly how your culture works so I can scale it. And those challenges of me just taking it for granted that people would understand, like, no, like we love a debate here. No, not everyone loves debates. They can't just expect everyone who turns up to our team to love to have a go at the CEO and just have it out with him. No, of course they're not. 22-year-olds, I'm going to walk in the business and just have it out with the CEO. That would feel like career suicide, even though I would absolutely enjoy that experience of our 22-year-old and think it's great. They're not going to know that. But by her understanding that that's how our culture works and how we want it to work, she can work out, okay, well, Stan, you can't just have that happen. We need to build into the culture and learning and development of this team that we want this thing to happen. We want these debates to be able to happen. They're robust. So now that I know and I've asked those questions, I'm going to challenge you on how we roll this out and how we talk about it and how we implement it. Because you just having a debate with one of your 22-year-olds is going to scare the hell out of them and they're going to leave. So it's little things like that. They're like, and you know, it's quite a new relationship between her and I. So she's really just fleshing it out. But she's challenged me on the assumptions I make of how things work. Going, you can't just let that doesn't scale, Stan. You can't scale that because you don't have the time for the personal one-on-one with that person afterwards to tell them, no, it's all right, like we're good. I really enjoyed that. You're going to have this argument and then you're going to walk away again.
How long do you think it's gonna take her to ramp? And when I say her, we meant the fractional leader, right? Number one, how fractional is this capacity?
So she's on a minimum of 5 hours per week, and then whatever's
Okay.
required to
Yeah.
do more. So like quarterlies and stuff, she'll do a whole day with us on the day and things like that.
Yeah. And then how long do you think, or from your experience as you see that ramp up, how long is it going to take for that ramp up to really become that ingrained part of fractional relationship for the whole company?
You know, I think it's probably a good year that it will take. I don't think it'll be fast. I think she's implemented herself really well as people know she's in a team. Like people get it. But until she's really had the impact, I don't like things to move. I don't think cultural shifts can happen fast. And I think if you try to make them fast, you break culture. You try to force something. Culture takes a long time to grow. And so I've actually said to her, like, we've got our annual planning in July so our annual planning is always in the middle of the year for the next 12 months ahead. And she's coming along with us for it. It's 2 days, so she's doing two full days with us as a leadership team because we have committed to her to say, no, you need to be there even though it's outside of contract because you're going to be here for the next year, so you need to set that direction. But the point of that session, she would have done 3 months with us by the time we get to annual planning. So she's gathered data, she understands, she's talked to people. We come into annual planning and we can set an annual planning cultural like milestones that what does it look like in a year's time from now, and then that gives her a full year to implement what she thinks is right. And I think you need to be able to give people the time to really execute on that the right way. Is she going to make impact and change before that? Of course, she already has. But will I judge her on this now? Probably not. I'd leave her because I know she can do so much more and give more impact. So I want her to have enough time. I want Tamara to be able to like really feel like she can move the needle the way she wants. And I think we'll know that the moment I stop being the person who holds the keys to culture in the team, that there'll be a time where that's fully handed over. Everyone starts to realize Stan isn't the guy. He's the CEO. He's the salesperson. He's not doing culture shifts. That's Tamara, and people refer to it that way. So I want to give her the time. I don't want to rush it, but also, I don't want it to take 3 years. But I also want it to. I want to give her the appropriate amount of time for her to have to do it properly.
It's fascinating, right? Because I think one of the supposedly value proposition of fractional is being able to do things fast. A little bit of come and break things so that you can rebuild it. So there is that dichotomy between, yes, culture takes time, but what are some of the more immediate shifts that needs to happen and bring in that fractional to be able to see that through, right? And I can imagine also the skeptics will be like, if it takes a year, again, why wouldn't we just have a full-time person to let it go faster?
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good question. It's a good, interesting insight that people. I think they are not mutually exclusive. I don't think just because you're getting someone to break and do things quickly, does that mean that culture will shift in that quick amount of time? They are just like planting the seed at that point. It just feels like a lot of change. It feels like a lot of chaos because when you break stuff, it hurts or you feel it a lot, and it's quite emotionally driven when you break things at the beginning or you really make big changes. But that doesn't mean the culture shifted. That just means the seed's being planted for the cultural shift. And because I look at stuff very long term, I'm not going, oh, great, she broke that piece of thing, well done, caused attention. Now I want to see what's the effect of that. How does that play out? And you're only really going to see the effect of that in a year's time. You're not going to see it in a month. You're going to see signs. There'll be milestones along that journey, of course there is. And she needs to be able to articulate what those milestones look like. Tamara can't expect I know. She needs to communicate that to me so I understand what those milestones are. We're heading in the right direction. But I know deep down that it's in a year from now, I'm going to see the full ramifications. And when I look back to this moment, I go, wow, remember when we used to do it this way? That's the bit I'm excited to see.
Yeah, fair enough. And last two questions. One, I always find it also interesting is that a lot of company also expect their senior leaders, HR included, to be their brand ambassador, right? So being a fractional, you will be, say, supporting 2 or 3 brands at the same time. To bring a brand ambassador for 2 or 3 is also sometimes can be confusing, right? So how do you think about the role of fractional leaders and their role in being brand ambassador?
Yeah, that's a really hard one, I think. Is it fair to have someone that you're unwilling to commit full time to really commit full time to your brand as well? And I understand the idea that, I'm a CEO, they're going to work for me, I need them. And it's like, okay, then you should also be okay with them doing that for their other 8 clients as well, and that there's going to be mixed message on them as well. However, with, say, Tamara, I want Tamara to promote her business, and in fact, I've told her, like, you so happen to work with a marketing agency, let us help you help yours. If she builds her brand up as Tamara and bloom with her business, and then the world finds out because we interact online that, oh, she is the fractional person for the attention seeker, look how great their culture is. Of course it is, because look, they're working with Tamara. That's awesome. It's similar to when say like a large enterprise will talk about their agency village that they bring on board. Everyone understands that those agencies work with more than one client, but the reason that a lot of brands will do that because they're excited to say, hey, we're good enough that we get to work with FTB or DDB or whatever. So I would rather her build her brand so I can tell the world, I work with Tamara. That's how good our culture is. Come work with us because we've got such a robust culture because she and her team, because she has actually got a team. She's not just a sole practitioner. She's actually got more of a team built around her. They help us do what we need to do. And so I wouldn't ever want her to necessarily promote us. I want her to promote herself so then I can promote that this is the type of people and caliber that we get to work with. It's kind of my thought process around it. But luckily enough, she doesn't mind posting about us and her clients actually and tagging us, and I don't mind seeing her tagging her clients as well in it because they are all other great businesses obviously because they're working with such a great person that I get put into the same conversation as some of these other great New Zealand businesses that she's working with as well. So I really like that, but I don't think it's fair that if I pay you fractionally, do I expect you to do so much for me? But it's a great question you bring up. Because it's an interesting one I haven't really thought about deeply, but now that you bring it up, I am more than happy to promote her before I promote us because I know the association will happen between us later on.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I ask is also as part of fractional, inevitably as you build talent strategy, you might start getting involved in part of interview conversation, right? And then that's where a lot of these brand depth and resonance really comes in those conversations. How do you do that authentically? But how do you also find the boundaries, right? Which also tells me fractional is not for everyone, right? So for you now on the other side, it's a little bit early in your journey.
Yeah.
What advice, what type of CEO or leaders you would say you should not get a fractional, you should not consider that, it's not going to work for you? Like,
yeah. What? That's an interesting question. I think there's a thing in marketing where the people who listen to your message are often the people who don't need it, and the ones who don't listen do need it. You see it a lot with like people who talk about say, mental health, for instance. The people who really need the support with mental health might not be listening, the ones who are suffering through mental health things, but the ones who have recovered, they're the ones now watching because they resonate, they understand this. And it's like, and so it's a really hard thing to do. So the leaders who probably need the people and culture people the most are probably also the ones who probably can't work with them very well because of the traits that they have, which makes them a little bit too protective, a little bit too controlling, really need to be able to let go. And if you don't let go for a people and culture person, you're not going to get the best out of them. They need to be able to have their freedom, just like everyone does. And so I think, actually, the people who shouldn't work with them are the ones who haven't worked on themselves first. They shouldn't. Because if you're not the sort of, if you're a leader, you typically find it, this is a massive oversimplification and stereotyping of leaders, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but you typically find the leaders who came up as an engineer or a really highly skilled person in their craft build a business because they're so good at what they do. But they weren't a leader first, they were an engineer first, or whatever, the skilled tradesman first. They haven't had leadership coaching or training the same way. Those sorts of people struggle with the let go of control because no one's as smart as them. No one's as good as them as what they do. And so it's really hard for them to let go. That's going to be really difficult for a people and culture person to come in when you got something like that. But they're also the person that the people and culture person can probably help the most. So my advice to those people would be, if you think you need this, but you don't think you could fully let go control, you probably need to start first of all on leadership coaching, leadership training, and really developing yourself as a leader, really understanding. So it's a kind of a cop-out answer, but I do think that is usually the way. Everyone needs people and culture, and if you're not focusing on it, you're obviously not growing a business with people in it. So that's out of the question. So fine, but the ones who need it the most are the ones who probably can't accept what a people and culture person has to do, let alone actually anyone to delegate authority to.
Yeah. I think it for them to even accept coaching, right, as a starting point, because I think see it as a great opportunity to start experiencing different conversation. Right? Your coach is going to bring you, if anything, I think great fractional leaders take on that coach role as well, right? The being a coach and leader for the team. So that starting point. So for them to even to say yes to coaching is probably a great giant step ahead before we think about fractional. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to get your perspective, your observation experience in New Zealand, right? What does the fractional movement looks like? It could be HR, but anything above and beyond. What does the fractional movement look like? What are people saying? What are they, how are they reacting when you talk about you having fractional leaders?
Yeah, I think that it's still very in its infancy. It's very much in its infancy. I think, a lot of Kiwi businesses are owned by the older generation. They're owned a lot by boomers and Gen X. And the old New Zealand mantra of the number 8 wire mentality of we can just fix it, get in and do it ourselves still holds really true with that generation of people. And look, to be fair, that's how they built their businesses. They built it in a time before we had a world like we do with such large access to information, distribution, attention, all those things. They came from that world, so they're not wrong necessarily, but we have to evolve with the time. So I think that as those businesses start to age out, sell, retire, things like that, and the new generation, the millennials, and then, quite quickly the Gen Zs who are coming up through beneath us, and some of these kids I know who are building businesses at 22, they see the world a little bit differently, right? They're more used to an online world and an online presence, and having relationships virtual is an interesting thing. So therefore, that lends itself to a non-complete relationship, right? Like when you meet people in person and you have that physical friendship, it feels like a complete relationship that you have with these people, and so you have this trust, and we can work together. Fractional, like, it hurts your brain a little bit. It's like, oh wait, I can't just talk to you whenever I want. I have to make allowances for when I can and how that works. But when you have a digital relationship with people, is it a gaming group that you play on, or a Facebook group you're a part of, you understand this like fractional relationship that you have with people, and you have heaps of them. You have actually thousands of these fractional relationships. So you're more used to having people only accessible in certain environments and places. So I think just our willingness to accept that fractional relationship is interesting. And then 2, we live in a world where costs are rising so fast now that you can't keep up with, you can't just have everything, but you need it all. So how can we solve for that? And so like as a fractional person, a consultant, you need you need to be able to charge a certain amount, but one person can't pay for that, so it makes sense. And as a business owner, I need the best, but I can't pay for the best to be with me full time. I do think New Zealand's changing. I think it's still in its infancy. A lot of people, when they saw me with my people and culture fractional person, actually said, man, that's such an interesting way to solve for that problem. I never thought about it. I just struggled with it on my own. So I had a bunch of people who say that. Also had a lot of other people call me brave. Like, man, that's cool. Like, so that's so brave of you to take on that, because everyone understood how important culture was to me. But also to take someone remotely, they weren't sure how to do it. But I think in general, I think the idea around fractional is opening up in New Zealand. We're just still in our infancy. It's not as big as it is, but the comparison in New Zealand to you pay an accountant fractionally, you've always done that. You've never had your accountant internally, and then digital marketing came about, and so now you had your marketing team externally. And so we're used to now outsourcing to these other companies who can do it at a fraction of the price of what it would cost to have that whole team in-house. Is much more normal. We just find it difficult to do it for one person. Like, it's easy to do it as a team. Like, accountant doesn't just have an accountant, they've got a whole team who helps you. The marketing agency's got a whole team who helps you. Fractional, Tamara, my fractional person, does have a team behind her, but we actually are just employing her right now as a fractional person. But that is a difficult conversation where I can pay you you're sometimes paying them the same hourly rate you're paying your lawyer. And that's a really difficult conversation for Kiwis to have, because everyone in New Zealand thinks the lawyers are the highest paid profession, hourly rate wise. How could I pay a people and culture person saying that's insane? I would never do that. And it's like, what has your lawyer done for you lately? Like, what have they done for you lately? Like, yeah, of course they're important. Lawyers have an absolute crucial role.
Keeping me out of jail.
Keep me out of jail. But like, your people and culture is like day to day, like they're so
Also
ingrained.
trying to keep you out of jail.
Also trying to keep you out of jail. yes, exactly. So, and they like the legal advice that they give you too. They are very much worth what they're paid. But I think it's in its infancy, but I do think it's changing. And I think the next generation of business owners are much more willing to do it, just because we're used to this fractional relationships that we have from a digital online world.
Great. Something we do a bit differently in our podcast. The last thing we close out with you asking me one question.
Interesting. You know what? I do have a question. What do you think, given the conversation I've had with you today about my relationship with my fractional person, that I haven't thought of that I should to make the most of the relationship?
Good question. I do think that being such a early stage of this relationship, right, and then I hear you, there is a coordinator that sort of is executing some of those. At some point, how do you build a fractional HR function that still feels like there is a more accessible relationship? Right. So I think is how do you build actually fractional and scale as an experience for your teams and employee? Part of it is going to be through the leaders, right? Still. But at some point, if they want to talk to someone about their leaders, they want to be able to feel like there's someone they can go to. And that person isn't going to be the coordinator, right? They need to feel like, how do I access someone like a Tamara to say, I need a 10-minute. I just had a horrible conversation about manager. And I do think there is where that tricky piece of a fractional to truly feel embedded. How do you build that safe space? And that will take time, right? But they almost have to start engineering it from now so that HR remain to be a space that is both for the leadership, but also for the broader team. But to your point about that fractional, people are a bit more used to that fractional relationship. Is almost like, how do you have a channel when they can access when they need it, right? And what does those relationship look like? Like, I work with my fractional team to be like, I will guarantee you will hear a response from me within the next 3 hours. Even if it's, I hear you, I can't talk to you right now. Can we talk tomorrow at 10 a.m.? So even start building those relationships, I think is something important to think about.
That's great. Love it. Thank you so much. That's actually really good. Like, we probably need to do that a little bit more. So thank you. That's great.
Thank you.